Heather, the hotel manager's eyes flicked over the young black woman with a disapproving glance. Maya, the black girl, was taken aback. Her chest tightened, and for a moment she couldn't believe what she was hearing. She had done nothing wrong. She was a paying guest, just like any other. "I'm not going anywhere," Maya said. Her voice was firm, unwavering. "I'm a paying guest here. I have every right to be in this lounge, and I will stay until I'm ready to leave." Heather's eyes flashed with irritation, but she didn't back down. "If you don't leave, I'll have you removed." The threat hung in the air, heavy and unjust. She was kicked out and humiliated, but little did the manager know that the girl she just kicked held one of the biggest connections in the city. Before we continue this story, tell us where you're watching from, and if you believe everyone should be treated with respect, click on the subscribe button now, like and share this video to others. Maya Evans walked into one of the city's most exclusive hotels for a relaxing stay during her business trip. This was going to be the most exciting weekend of her life, she thought to herself. Maya stepped out of the cab and onto the bustling city streets, adjusting the hem of her well-tailored suit. In her late 20s, Maya had already accomplished more than many could dream of in a lifetime. She was a young woman, carving out her place in the world of fashion, and was gradually becoming a sensation in the industry. As she walked towards the towering, luxurious hotel that would be her home for the next few days, she felt a rush of anticipation and excitement. Today wasn't just about staying in a fancy hotel. This business conference would determine the next step in her career. She worked hard in the past few years, and her work finally had now been recognized in the industry, as she received the exclusive invite to the business conference meant for only the elite fashion stars in the city. As Maya entered the lobby of the five-star hotel she'd booked for her stay, the hotel's reputation for elite clientele made it the perfect choice for someone like her. The hotel lobby was a sight to behold. Marble floors gleamed beneath elegant chandeliers, and the polished wood of the front desk seemed to glow with sophistication. Everything about the hotel said one thing: wealth, power, and exclusivity. Maya walked with confidence, the click of her heels on the polished marble echoing in the quiet elegance around her. She wore a simple but elegant outfit, and her beauty complemented how beautiful the hotel was. Maya approached the check-in counter, turning her attention to the receptionist, who stood behind the counter and greeted her with a polite smile. Just after her, a woman stepped inside. Blonde, well-dressed, with a confident air about her. She moved toward the desk as Maya approached it. Just as Maya was about to speak to the receptionist, Heather, the hotel manager, a woman of commanding presence, stepped forward from her spot near the lobby's entrance. She was dressed in a sharp business suit, her platinum blonde hair perfectly styled, her posture impeccable. Without a second thought, Heather turned toward the blonde woman behind Maya and gave her a warm, practiced smile, totally ignoring Maya. "Excuse me, miss. Let me assist you first." Maya blinked, the shock of the moment reverberating through her. Was she hearing this correctly? She was standing right there, not more than a foot from the desk, yet she was completely disregarded. Heather's eyes didn't even flicker in her direction. The receptionist, who had initially turned to greet Maya, hesitated, but with one look from Heather, she quickly redirected her attention to the other woman. Maya stood still, her breath caught in her throat, trying to process what was happening. The white woman approached the counter, as if this was all perfectly natural. Heather smiled and made small talk with her, all the while showering her with a level of attention that was both overly gracious and unnecessarily attentive. Maya, meanwhile, was left standing there, invisible in a space that should have been open to her just as much as anyone else. She had walked in first, prepared to conduct her business like any other guest, but here she was, being treated like an afterthought, No explanation, no acknowledgement, just silence. The woman at the counter finished her transaction quickly, giving Heather a smile that seemed to say, "Thank you for making me feel like I matter." Without even a glance in Maya's direction, she gathered her things and walked past her, as if there was nothing unusual about the way the exchange had gone down. Maya didn't move. She could feel the heat rising in her chest, but she swallowed it down, taking slow, deliberate breaths. As the woman exited the lobby, Heather turned back to Maya, still smiling, though there was tightness in her eyes. "Sorry about that, ma'am. Let me assist you now," Heather said. Maya's gaze locked onto Heather. She didn't flinch, didn't show the hurt that was bubbling beneath the surface. Instead, she spoke with quiet but undeniable firmness. "Why did you help her first?" There was no hesitation in her voice, no fear. Just the quiet demand for an answer. Heather's smile faltered just a fraction before she quickly masked it with a polite laugh. "Well, ma'am, it's our policy to give priority to exclusive guests first." Maya's eyes never left Heather, sharp and unwavering. She could feel the weight of the words hang in the air. The smile Heather had tried to offer now felt forced, as if she were attempting to placate Maya, to make this all seem normal, as though there was no deeper reason for her actions. "Exclusive guests? You mean people who look like her?" For a moment, Heather froze. The words struck harder than either of them had anticipated. She opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. Maya could see the cracks in her composure, the moment of guilt that flashed across Heather's face. But it was gone almost as quickly as it came, replaced by a defensive edge. "It's just how we handle things here, ma'am. It's nothing personal, just the way things are done. It's for the comfort of our guests," Heather replied. Maya kept quiet, not wanting to cause a scene yet. The manager, Heather, was a middle-aged woman in a crisp black uniform, exuding an air of authority with her sharp features and professional demeanor. But as Heather looked up from her computer, her gaze lingered just a second too long, and Maya could immediately sense that something was wrong. Heather's eyes scanned Maya's appearance from head to toe. The brief, subtle hesitation before Heather looked back at her screen wasn't lost on Maya. The manager's expression remained cool, but the way she stared at Maya spoke volumes. It wasn't just about the check-in, it was about who she assumed Maya to be. "Name, please?" Heather asked, her tone flat, almost dismissive. Maya could feel her heart rate spike ever so slightly, but she smiled politely and replied, "Maya Evans." She handed over her reservation details, her fingers brushing the sleek counter. But Heather didn't meet her gaze again. Instead, she tapped away at her keyboard, the cold, professional detachment in her movements only making Maya feel more disconnected from the warm, welcoming environment she had hoped to find. There was a moment of pause, just a brief hesitation from Heather as she read through the booking information on the screen. The silence hung between them, and Maya could sense Heather's assumption that someone like her didn't belong in this high-end hotel. Finally, Heather spoke, her voice slightly condescending. "It seems you booked a standard room, Miss Evans." She glanced at Maya for a split second before adding, "Are you sure that's what you wanted? The hotel typically reserves designated rooms for clients of your caliber." Maya felt her stomach churn with subtle indignation. It was a simple sentence, masked by politeness, but the implication was unmistakable. Heather didn't think Maya belonged in one of the high-end rooms. The way Heather said, "clients of your caliber," made it clear she had already made an assumption about Maya's status, based on nothing more than her appearance. But Maya, ever the professional, simply smiled tightly and replied, "I'm fine with the room I've booked, thank you." Maya's eyes flickered to the key card Heather handed her, but her mind raced. It wasn't just the words, it was the way Heather looked at her, like she was a lesser guest, as if she didn't deserve to be here in the first place. Still, Maya took a deep breath, adjusting her shoulders as she accepted the key card, her professionalism shining through despite the tension in the air. With a final, tight smile, she nodded and turned toward the elevator, determined not to let Heather's judgment derail her. After settling into her room, Maya took a deep breath, letting the comfort of the luxurious space wash over her. The room was spacious and quiet, a perfect retreat for someone gearing up for an important conference. But there was one thing still on her mind: the lingering encounter with Heather, the hotel manager. Maya had been to many high-end hotels before, but there was something about the way Heather had looked at her, the silent judgment, the condescension, that bothered her. She had brushed it off for now, telling herself that this was a part of the journey she had to face. But now she couldn't shake the feeling. She decided to head down to the hotel lounge to unwind before the conference started. She needed a quiet moment, and this hotel, with all its grandeur, seemed like the perfect place to find peace. As she entered the lounge, the rich decor, soft lighting, plush armchairs, and large windows overlooking the city immediately made her feel like she belonged. She chose a comfortable chair, sinking into the softness, and closed her eyes for a brief moment, trying to center herself. But as she looked up, her gaze met Heather's across the room. It was that same, unmistakable cold stare. Maya could feel it, like an invisible weight pressing on her, making her feel out of place in the very space she was paying to occupy. Heather's eyes lingered just a bit too long, almost as if she were measuring Maya up, making sure she didn't belong here. As Heather finally broke the gaze, she started walking toward Maya. The distance between them felt like the slow march of impending judgment. Maya's heartbeat quickened, knowing that something was about to happen, but unsure of what form it would take. Heather's approach was deliberate, and as she neared, the air around them seemed to thicken. There was a moment of silence before Heather spoke, and when she did, her voice was laced with condescension. "Excuse me, ma'am, but this area is for important guests only." Heather's eyes flicked over Maya with a disapproving glance. "I'm afraid you can't just hang around here." Maya was taken aback. Her chest tightened, and for a moment she couldn't believe what she was hearing. She had done nothing wrong. She was a paying guest, just like any other. She had every right to be in this lounge. Yet here was Heather, making it clear that Maya wasn't worthy of this space. "I'm a guest here." Maya's voice was steady, despite the storm of frustration building within her. She wanted to reason with Heather, wanted to explain that she belonged, that she wasn't some intruder. But Heather wasn't listening. Her eyes narrowed as she dismissed Maya's response. "This is for clients who are part of the hotel's elite clientele. You'll need to head back to your room, or perhaps find somewhere else to wait." The words hit Maya like a slap in the face. The judgment was clear, and it wasn't about the lounge. It was about who Heather thought Maya was. Someone who didn't belong. Someone who didn't deserve to take up space in this exclusive hotel. Maya's hands clenched into fists, her nails digging into her palms. She wasn't going to let this slide. Not this time. Not after everything she'd worked for. Maya stood up, her eyes fixed on Heather. There was a flicker of anger, but more than that, there was a determined calm. She wasn't going to let herself be humiliated in front of the other guests. She wasn't going to let Heather's prejudice dictate how she moved through this world. "I'm not going anywhere." Maya's voice was firm, unwavering. "I'm a paying guest here. I have every right to be in this lounge, and I will stay until I'm ready to leave." Heather's eyes flashed with irritation, but she didn't back down. "If you don't leave, I'll have to have you removed." The threat hung in the air, heavy and unjust. It was clear to Maya that Heather wasn't going to listen. The conversation was over. Heather had made up her mind, and Maya's presence in the hotel didn't matter to her. Maya felt a surge of humiliation and anger, But instead of yelling or reacting rashly, she turned and walked out. She had a mission, a career to protect, and Heather's pettiness wasn't worth her energy. Standing in the hallway, trying to soak up the embarrassment she just faced, she saw Heather dashing towards her, a security officer in close proximity. Maya convinced herself they weren't coming for her. After all the embarrassment she just passed through, how low could Heather possibly go? But she was quick to conclude, because Heather was willing to go lower than she thought. With quick strides, Heather was standing before her, arms folded with a stern look that spelt disgust. "I'll have to ask you out of the premises for defiance to direct order." Maya looked in disbelief. "Defiance, you say? You publicly embarrassed me and asked me out of the lounge as though I am not a paying customer, and I left the lounge. This is the hallway, and as you can see, I am heading to my room. Now you ask me out of the premises for defiance to direct order." Heather had a smirk on her face. She nodded at the security who advanced towards Maya. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave, or I'll be forced to push you out." At that point, Maya was trying to convince herself this was all a dream. "Wait a minute," Maya said. "I showed you my reservation. I paid for my room. What makes you think you have the right to kick me out?" Well, Heather replied, "If you know you don't plan on following our rules, you shouldn't have booked our hotel." Maya couldn't take it anymore. She walked out fuming. She walked to the cafeteria outside the hotel and sat down, her mind swirling with a mixture of anger and frustration. She had just been treated like she didn't belong, a paying guest, a professional, made to feel like an outsider in a space that was supposed to be welcoming. She could feel the anger rising in her chest, but she also knew that this wasn't the time to react rashly. Maya had always handled challenges with grace, but this time felt different. This time, the sting of discrimination cut too deep. What would you do if you were in Maya's shoes, considering the humiliating experience she just faced? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you haven't liked this video yet, you can do that now and subscribe for more stories like this. Maya's hands were shaking slightly as she pulled out her phone. She knew exactly who she needed to call. Her father, Mayor Robert Evans. The mayor wasn't just any city leader. He was a man who had dedicated his career to fighting for equality, to breaking down the walls of racism and injustice that often divided their community. Her fingers dialed his number quickly, and as the phone rang, she felt the familiar rush of emotions building up inside her. Her father answered on the second ring. "Maya?" His voice was calm, but she could tell he was already attuned to her distress. "What's going on?" "Dad, Maya's voice faltered slightly, but she took a deep breath to steady herself. "I've just been kicked out of the hotel I'm staying at. The manager, she told me I didn't belong. She said I didn't fit in with their exclusive clientele." There was a pause on the other end of the line, and then Maya heard her father's voice grow stern. "What do you mean, kicked out?" Maya explained everything. How she had been made to feel like an intruder, the subtle microaggressions, the unspoken bias that had lingered in the air. She told him about Heather's condescending tone and how the manager had essentially told her that she wasn't welcome in the lounge simply because of how she looked. Her father listened intently, his silence speaking volumes. It wasn't just about his daughter being mistreated. It was about the fact that, once again, someone had assumed she didn't belong based on her race. "I'm coming down there, Maya. I'll handle this personally. Stay where you are. Don't go back inside until I get there." His words were full of determination, and for the first time since the confrontation, Maya felt a wave of empowerment wash over her. She wasn't alone in this. Her father, a man who had fought for equality his entire career, was going to take action. "Thank you, Dad. I can't believe this is happening again." Maya's voice cracked for a moment, the weight of the situation settling in. "Don't thank me. This is unacceptable, Maya. This hotel will understand exactly who they're dealing with. As Maya looked up, she saw her father's black SUV pulling into the hotel's drive. Mayor Robert Evans wasn't just a politician. He was a force in the city. Now, he was about to confront the very system that had tried to silence his daughter. The car door opened, and Mayor Evans stepped out, his presence immediately commanding attention. Tall, dignified, and poised, he was exactly the kind of person who made others take notice. As he walked toward her, Maya felt a rush of pride. He reached her side and placed a hand on her shoulder, his expression one of determined confidence. "Let's go handle this, Maya." They walked together into the hotel, and as they entered the lobby, all eyes were on them. The hotel staff, who had been silent witnesses to the unfolding tension, seemed to recognize the shift in the atmosphere. No longer was Maya just a guest. Now, she was the daughter of the mayor. And this time, it was Heather who would feel the weight of the judgment. Maya and her father approached the check-in desk, where Heather was standing. She was still there, though her confidence from earlier had clearly faded. "Miss Heather?" Mayor Evans's voice was calm but laced with authority. "I need to speak with you, now." Heather's face paled when she recognized who he was. Her earlier disdainful expression quickly shifted to a nervous, stammering attempt at a smile. But it was too late. "I've just spoken to my daughter about what happened here." Mayor Evans began, his voice steady and authoritative. "This treatment is unacceptable." She's your daughter?" Heather asked, stammering. She was too stunned to speak. "Oh, I'm so sorry, Mayor. I didn't recognize her as your daughter." Heather tried to apologize, but the mayor wasn't interested in her words. He had seen enough. The CEO of the hotel came in shortly after being informed of the situation. The mayor turned to the CEO and addressed the room. "This hotel prides itself on exclusivity, but exclusivity should never come at the cost of basic decency." He paused, letting his words sink in. "I am holding you accountable for this." Heather was led out to the disciplinary team of the hotel. Everyone watched as she walked out in shame. What do you think would happen to Heather? Would she be fired or forgiven? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and click that subscribe button if you haven't. Mayor Evans spoke to the staff, emphasizing that this behavior will not be tolerated. He makes it clear that the hotel must adopt more inclusive practices to make sure everyone feels welcome. Maya stands with her father, now feeling a sense of victory and empowerment. The atmosphere in the hotel shifts from tense to one of renewed purpose. As she and her father leave the hotel together, Maya reflects on how much this moment meant to her. She stood up for herself, and her father's swift action made sure change happened. The next day, Maya received a call from Mr. Clark, one of the people she was supposed to meet with at the hotel for the conference. He commended her for standing up for herself and her comportment during the harsh treatment. "Miss Maya, you're the kind of person we wish to work with. Now to the reason I called. We would be hosting an exclusive business conference for a very select few, and we're inviting you to be a part of it. Seeing the strength of your character, and due to the fact that you couldn't make it to the first conference due to what happened, we decided to offer you another opportunity. That's if you're willing to take it." Maya screamed in excitement before remembering to comport herself. "I would be glad to be a part of the business conference, and thank you for this opportunity." She said, "That's great. I'll have my secretary mail the platinum invitation to you. It's for special guests only. Also, reservations and all have been handled. Any other information you need will be found in the invite." Immediately the call dropped. Maya jumped up frantically, dancing and swirling around her room. The business conference was the beginning of newer opportunities for Maya, as Mr. Clark took it upon himself to announce to people how Maya had comported herself. They were especially impressed that she wasn't like most connected people, who would behave irrational because they were connected to those in authority. Maya never was one to show off her position. Everything she attained was with due diligence and hard work. She signed a new business contract that would push her into billions. After all was said and done, everyone moved to the bar for a cocktail party. Maya was overwhelmed at this new accomplishment. She had not just signed a huge contract that would shape her career, but had also made new connections. After the disciplinary committee of the hotel sanctioned Heather, Heather was shaken. She requested a private meeting with Maya, where she breaks down and apologizes for her actions. Heather reveals that she grew up in a diverse community where she had friends from all backgrounds. However, her great-aunt, an influential figure in her life, instilled in her a sense of superiority and warned her about the dangers of other people. Heather explains that her great-aunt's words poisoned her mind, making her see people of Maya's color as a threat. She began to believe that she needed to put them in their place to maintain her own status. As Heather shares her story, Maya listens intently, seeing the pain and regret in Heather's eyes. Maya begins to understand that Heather's actions were not just driven by racism, but also by a deep-seated fear and insecurity. Maya listens intently to Heather's apology and revelation, her expression a mix of surprise, empathy, and caution. She takes a moment to process the complexity of Heather's story, acknowledging the pain and regret in her eyes. As Heather grew older, she began to internalize these biases, seeing people of color as a threat to her status and power. She started to distance herself from her diverse community, surrounding herself with like-minded individuals who reinforced her prejudices. Heather's relationship with her great-aunt was complicated. On one hand, Agnes provided financial support and guidance. On the other hand, Agnes's toxic ideology poisoned Heather's mind, leading her down a path of racism and intolerance. Maya's initial response was one of skepticism, wondering if Heather's apology is genuine or just an attempt to save face. Maya decides to accept Heather's apology, not for Heather's sake, but for her own. She recognizes that holding on to anger and resentment would only perpetuate a cycle of hate and hurt. But deep down she felt something unsettling, as though Heather's apology was fake. With a calm and measured tone, Maya responds, "Heather, I appreciate your apology. It takes courage to confront our own biases and mistakes. However, I need you to understand that your actions had real consequences, not just for me, but for my family and community." As news of Heather's apology and revelation spreads, the hotel faces a backlash from the community. Some people praise Heather's courage, while others demand her resignation, stating it was a farce. The hotel's ownership was divided on how to handle the situation. Some wanted him to fire Heather, while others believed she deserves a second chance. Maya's family was also affected by the fallout. Her parents, the mayor and his wife, faced criticism for their handling of the situation. Some people accused them of being too soft on Heather, while others praised their commitment to restorative justice. As tensions rise, an investigative journalist named Alex began to sniff around the hotel's history. Alex had a reputation for uncovering secrets and exposing truths, and the hotel's suspicious behavior had caught his attention. After weeks of digging, Alex finally stumbled upon a hidden archive room in the hotel's basement. The room was dusty and dimly lit, with old files and photographs scattered across the shelves. Alex's eyes scanned the shelves, and his heart skipped a beat as he spotted a series of yellowed documents bound together with a faded ribbon. He carefully untied the ribbon and discovered a collection of newspaper clippings, letters, and meeting minutes from the 1950s and 1960s. The documents revealed a shocking truth. The hotel where Heather worked had a dark history. During the height of the civil rights movement, The hotel had been a hub for segregationist activities, hosting secret meetings and rallies. Alex's eyes widened as he read about the hotel's owner at the time, Reginald Thornton First. Thornton First had been a vocal supporter of segregation, using his wealth and influence to undermine the efforts of civil rights activists. As Alex continued reading, he discovered that Heather's great-aunt, Agnes, had been a key figure in the hotel's segregationist activities. Agnes had worked as a secretary for Thornton First, helping to organize rallies and events that promoted racist ideologies. Alex knew he had stumbled upon something big. He quickly gathered his notes and evidence, knowing that he had to expose the truth. Undeterred, Alex decided to dig deeper. He spent the next few days researching the hotel's current ownership and management, looking for any connections to the segregationist activities of the past. One name kept popping up: Regina Thornton First, the hotel's current CEO and the granddaughter of Reginald Thornton First, the segregationist owner from the 1950s and 1960s. Alex's gut told him that Regina was the key to unlocking the truth. He decided to pay her a visit, armed with his evidence and a list of tough questions. As he arrived at the hotel, Alex was greeted by Regina's assistant, who seemed nervous and on edge. "Miss Thornton First is busy, but she'll see you now," the assistant said, leading Alex to Regina's office. Regina Thornton First was a poised and polished woman in her late 40s. She smiled warmly as Alex entered, but her eyes betrayed a hint of unease. "Mr. Alex, what can I do for you?" she asked, her voice dripping with Southern charm. Alex got straight to the point. "Miss Thornton First, I've uncovered some disturbing information about your hotel's past. Care to comment?" Regina's smile faltered, and for a moment Alex saw a flash of fear in her eyes. But then, her mask slipped back into place and she leaned forward, her voice taking on a menacing tone. "I think you'll find that the past is just that, the past, and I'll do whatever it takes to keep it buried." Alex's instincts screamed that he was onto something big. He finally understands why Heather behaved the way she did to Maya. She wasn't only raised by a racist, but was under direct order from the CEO, who was guiding the legacy of her father, just as Robert was guiding the legacy of his. Alex begins to notice that Heather seems overly cooperative and enthusiastic about uncovering the truth. At first, he thinks she's just trying to make amends for her past mistakes. But as he digs deeper, he discovers a shocking revelation. Heather's great-aunt, Agnes, wasn't just a secretary for Reginald, but the previous manager before she passed on, and it was handed to Heather. And Heather has been following in her footsteps, using her position at the hotel to make sure the status quo stays the same. They knew a lot of bright minds, including whites, blacks, and people of color, who worked in the hotel, weren't buying into their segregational affairs, so they had to keep a manager who would ensure things worked out as they wanted it to. Heather's ultimate goal was to help Mrs. Regina gain control over the city's lucrative development projects. She's been playing a long game, using her charm and charisma to manipulate those around her and get closer to her goal. Alex is stunned by this revelation, realizing that Heather's apology and cooperation were just a ruse to throw him off her trail. He knows he must act quickly to expose Heather's true intentions and stop her before it's too late. But as Alex confronts Heather, he's met with a surprise. Heather reveals that she's not the only one with secrets. Alex knew he had to share his explosive findings with the right people. He decided to reach out to Maya, the mayor's daughter, who had been at the center of the controversy surrounding Heather's actions. Maya was shocked and outraged when Alex revealed the hotel's dark past and Heather's family connections to the segregationist activities. She knew her father, the mayor, would be equally appalled. Together, Alex and Maya decided to take the evidence to the mayor. They scheduled a meeting with him, and Alex shared his findings, revealing the hotel's history and Heather's family ties to the segregationist movement. The mayor was stunned and angry, feeling betrayed by Heather's actions and the hotel's attempts to cover up their past. He knew he had to take swift action to address the situation. Alex was still reeling from the revelation about Heather's true intentions. He had been working tirelessly to expose her scheme and bring her to justice. But just as he thought he had finally gotten to the bottom of things, the mayor dropped a bombshell. The next day, the mayor held a press conference, announcing that he was terminating the hotel's contract with the city, effective immediately. The only way for it to function again in the city was a change in manager. At the press conference, the mayor announced that to replace Heather, "I am pleased to announce that Alex, our intrepid investigative journalist, will be taking the role of hotel manager," the mayor declared, beaming with pride. Alex's jaw dropped. He was speechless. He had been so focused on exposing Heather's scheme that he hadn't seen this coming. But I'm a journalist, not a hotel manager," Alex stuttered, trying to process what was happening. The mayor chuckled. "Ah, Alex, you're a man of many talents, and I have every confidence that you'll bring the same level of dedication and integrity to this new role that you've brought to your reporting." As the room erupted in applause, Alex felt like he was trapped in some kind of surreal dream. He had gone from investigating the hotel's dark past to becoming its manager in the blink of an eye. Heather, who had been watching the press conference from the sidelines, smiled sweetly as she caught Alex's eye. "Congratulations, Alex," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "I'm sure you'll do a wonderful job." Maya stood by her father's side during the press conference, feeling a sense of pride and relief that justice was finally being served. Alex was also in attendance, his camera capturing the dramatic moment. As the news spread like wildfire, the hotel's management and ownership were forced to confront the consequences of their actions. Regina Thornton First, the hotel's CEO, issued a statement apologizing for the hotel's past and promising to make amends. As the press conference came to a close, Maya stepped forward, her voice filled with emotion. "Today, we mark a new beginning. The beginning of healing, of reconciliation, and of justice. The secrets and lies that have haunted our city for so long are finally being brought to light. I want to thank Alex, our brave and tireless journalist, for his dedication to uncovering the truth. And I want to thank my father, the mayor, for his courage in taking action. As we move forward, we must do so with a commitment to justice, equality, and truth. We must acknowledge the pain of our past, but we must also work towards a brighter future. Let us use this moment as a catalyst for change. Let us work together to build a city that is just, equitable, and free from the shackles of racism and oppression. Thank you," Alex said to the crowd. The room erupted in applause as Maya stepped back, her eyes shining with tears. Alex, now the hotel's new manager, smiled at her, his eyes filled with pride. The mayor put his arm around Maya, holding her close. As the crowd dispersed, Heather slipped away, her eyes fixed on the ground. The city was changing, and she knew she had to change with it. But for now, she just disappeared into the shadows. Her secrets and lies had been unraveled. If you want to see more stories about standing up for what's right and fighting injustice, like and subscribe now. See you in the next video.